Do you believe in ghosts? What if you had to face one alone on a deserted road in the dead of night? Hi friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have a spine-chilling story that will grip you until the very end. So sit tight and prepare yourself for a haunting tale about a truck driver and a road with a dark secret. Jack was not just any truck driver. He was known among his peers as the king of the open road. He had driven every possible route in the country, navigating through bustling cities, serene countryside, and even treacherous mountain passes. But despite his vast experience, nothing could have prepared him for the eerie journey on Miller's Hollow Road. Miller's Hollow Road had a notorious reputation. Legends whispered of ghostly figures and unexplainable phenomena that plagued the winding stretch. Some said it was haunted by the spirit of a woman who had vanished decades ago, on a stormy night much like this one. Others believed it was simply an unfortunate hotspot for accidents due to its sharp curves and poor visibility. But whatever the belief, truckers often avoided the road, except for Jack. Being a practical man with little patience for superstitions, scoffed at the rumors. He was confident in his skills and his sturdy truck, which had been his reliable companion on countless trips. Tonight, his job was to deliver a shipment of antiques to a town just beyond Miller's Hollow. The pay was good, too good to pass up over some ghost stories. The night of the journey, the weather was foul. Rain pounded on the windshield, and gusts of wind rocked the cab as Jack maneuvered his truck onto the entrance of Miller's Hollow Road. He turned on his high beams, the light barely penetrating the thick fog that rolled in like a living entity. The atmosphere felt charged, electric, as if the air itself was alive with whispered warnings. As he drove deeper into the mist, Jack kept his eyes fixed on the road, trying to ignore the oppressive darkness that seemed to press against the windows. The radio, usually a source of cheerful music or interesting talk shows, now only offered a low, static hum, adding to the unsettling feeling that had begun to settle in Jack's gut. Miles into the road, Jack's headlights caught a glimpse of something white off to the side. His heart raced as the shape became clearer, a woman standing alone. She was soaked to the bone, rain plastering her long, dark hair to her face, which was obscured by the shadows. Slowing the truck, Jack rolled down his window, the sound of the storm rushing in. "Are you okay?" he shouted over the roar of the wind and rain. There was no response. The woman simply stood there, her gaze fixed in the direction of the truck. Jack's instincts screamed at him to drive away, but he couldn't leave someone out in such terrible weather. With breath, he pulled the truck over and grabbed his flashlight. "Stay here, I'll be right back," he muttered to himself as he opened the door and stepped into the deluge. The ground was muddy, sucking at his boots as he approached the figure. "Do you need help?" he called out again, shining the flashlight in her direction. The light seemed to pass through her, and for a moment Jack doubted his own eyes, but before he could reach her, she vanished as if swept away by the wind. Jack stood there in the rain, the beam of his flashlight trembling in his hand. He was sure she had been there, right in front of him. Shaking off the water, he hurried back to the truck, his mind racing. Had he just seen a ghost? Determined to leave the haunted road behind, Jack jumped back into the cab and started the engine. The road seemed to stretch into infinity, the fog growing so thick that it felt like driving through a cloud. His heart pounded loudly in his ears, each beat echoing the increasing dread he felt. Then, just as he thought he was clear, the figure appeared again, this time directly in the middle of the road. Jack slammed on the brakes, his truck skidding to a stop just inches from her. The night was pitch black, save for the beams of his headlights cutting through the fog, illuminating the figure of a woman standing eerily still in the middle of the road. Her face, pale and ghostly, emerged from the darkness as she looked up, her eyes hollow, mirroring a profound sadness that seemed not of this time. She pointed silently towards a path that veered off the main road, a path enveloped by an ominous darkness and a creeping mist that seemed to whisper secrets. Jack's heart raced, his instincts screaming at him to put the truck in reverse and escape whatever strange encounter this was shaping up to be. Yet, despite his fear, there was something mesmerizing about her mournful gaze that rooted him to the spot. It was as if her eyes were pleading with him, reaching into the depths of his soul and beckoning him to follow. With a shaky breath, he turned the steering wheel, the truck's tires crunching the gravel as he steered it onto the narrow, winding path. As he drove, the trees lining the path seemed to close in around him, their gnarled branches clawing at the fading light from his headlights. The air grew colder, a chill that seeped through the cracks of the truck's windows and wrapped around him like a shroud. Ahead, the path led to an old rickety bridge that arched over a deep black river, its waters whispering beneath. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel as he approached, the truck's engine humming a steady, uneasy idling. He stopped at the edge of the bridge, the structure groaning under the weight of the truck. There, the woman appeared again, her figure ghostly and blurred by the rain that had begun to fall, mixing with her tears in the dim light. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he opened the door and stepped out into the night. His boots met the wet wood of the bridge with soft thuds, approaching the spectral figure who stood with a sorrow that filled the air around her. "What do you want?" Jack's voice broke the silence, trembling with a mix of fear and compassion. The woman pointed, her arm extending towards a spot near the edge of the bridge. Following her silent command, Jack's eyes landed on a small, seemingly forgotten grave marked only by a weathered wooden cross. No name, no dates, just the symbol of someone remembered only by the sorrowful spirit before him. The impact of the sight struck Jack with a force stronger than the wind that now howled around him. This was where she had died, where her story had ended, yet her spirit lingered, tethered to this lonely place. Guilt and empathy overwhelmed him as he knelt beside the grave. The rain mixed with his tears as he traced the outlines of the cross, the wood rough beneath his fingers. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the catching in his throat. His voice was barely audible over the storm, but he felt a shift in the air, a lightening of the heavy sorrow that enveloped the bridge. The woman's figure began to fade, her presence dissipating into the night, her eyes, once filled with endless grief, now softened, a glimmer of peace reflecting in their depths as they met his one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a faint echo carried away by the wind, and then she was gone, leaving Jack alone on the bridge with only the sound of the river below. Jack stood there for a long moment, the weight of what he had witnessed settling over him. As the leaves rustled in the chilly wind, his mind replayed the chilling sight of the spectral woman he had encountered. The ghostly figure, dressed in the remnants of what appeared to be a Victorian gown, had hovered silently by the roadside, her eyes filled with unspeakable sadness. Jack's heart had raced as the figure gestured towards a dilapidated old mansion hidden behind gnarled trees, its once majestic structure now surrendered to decay. Jack knew he had to tell someone about this place, to make sure the woman's story wasn't forgotten. His thoughts raced as he considered reaching out to local historians or perhaps a paranormal investigation team. Could this woman be a former resident of the mansion bound to the earthly realm by some unfinished business? Or was it merely a trick of the light, figment of his imagination spurred by the eerie surroundings of Miller's Hollow Road? He made a silent promise to return, to bring flowers and remember the life that had been lost here. Jack imagined coming back with a bouquet of white lilies, placing them gently by the roadside where he had seen the apparition. He pictured himself sitting there, perhaps trying to communicate with the spirit, to learn her story and help her find peace. The thought both terrified and intrigued him. As Jack drove away from Miller's Hollow Road, the fog began to lift and the rain eased into a gentle drizzle. In his rearview mirror, the mansion faded into the mist, a final glimpse of the haunting figure etched in his memory. Road ahead seemed brighter somehow, the oppressive atmosphere of the hollow dissipating with each mile he put between himself and the mansion. The haunting feeling that had gripped him loosened its hold, and Jack felt a sense of peace he couldn't quite explain. It was as if the ghostly woman had communicated some ethereal wisdom, a silent message of acceptance and release. Jack found himself reflecting on his own life, on the people he had lost, and the moments he had let slip by unappreciated. When he finally reached his destination, he knew his life had changed. The encounter on that dark road had awakened something within him, a curiosity about the unknown and a desire to connect with the past. Jack a renewed sense of purpose, a drive to explore more of these forgotten places and unearth the stories they held. The ghostly encounter on that dark road had left a mark on him, one that he would carry with him always. It had opened his eyes to the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of the everyday world, urging him to look closer, to delve deeper into the shadows where truths awaited. Thank you for joining me on this eerie journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of the drive safely, and always be cautious of the roads less traveled. Subscribe for more haunting stories.